Right, WordPress just generated this blog title for me, and annoyingly, it's actually better than the one I was about to use, which is slightly concerning because it means WordPress has now firmly wandered into AI territory. Now, to be clear, WordPress 7 isn't suddenly turning into some magical all-knowing website builder that does everything for you while you just sit there drinking coffee and pretending you planned it that way from the very start. No, what WordPress 7 is really adding is the AI groundwork. The things like the plumbing, the connectors, the underlying system that lets WordPress talk to different AI providers properly. And then sitting on top of that, you've got the AI experiments plugin, which is where the more visible stuff starts showing up. Things like generating titles, creating excerpts, summarizing content, writing alt text, generating images, and even producing review notes inside the editor, which all sounds very clever. But as usual, the real question isn't whether it looks good in a demo. It's whether any of this is actually useful once you try to use it in a normal WordPress workflow. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to look at what WordPress 7 is bringing to the table, what the AI Experiments plugin can actually do right now, and whether this is the start of something genuinely useful. Now, the most obvious one is title generation, and to be fair, this does make a lot of sense, because if you've ever sat there staring at the title field, trying to come up with something that's not only useful, but clickable and not completely ridiculous sounding, you know it can be weirdly annoying. So here, WordPress can suggest post titles using AI to help you create engaging and relevant headlines much easier. And yes, this is useful. And then there's the more practical stuff. Alt text generation is one of those features that is actually helpful in the real world, because it improves accessibility and saves time on the jobs people either forget to do or leave until the end and then rush badly. Now, you've also got excerpt generation and content summarization, which again makes sense for WordPress because so much of what people do here revolves around writing, editing, and tidying up content. So that's where this starts to feel less like AI for the sake of AI and more like AI being dropped into parts of the workflow where it might genuinely earn its keep. And then we got the feature that will probably get the most attention because, well, obviously it will do, image generation. The latest AI Experiments release adds prompt-based image generation in the editor and in the media library, so you can generate an image, try variations, and insert it straight into your content without leaving WordPress. Right, so far this all looks quite clever, which in fairness is exactly what AI features are supposed to look like in a demo. The real question though is whether any of these stay useful once you get past that novelty factor. Because if you build websites for clients, manage content properly, or care about consistency, then that's clever, but just simply isn't enough. You need to know whether it saves time, whether it fits into a normal workflow, whether the results are any good, and whether it creates more checking and fixing afterwards than it saves in time up front. And that's the bit that actually matters to most of us. So let's test a few of these features properly and see where this feels useful and where it starts feeling like something that looked brilliant in a meeting. Now, the plugin's own documentation frames these features as experiments, opt-in and subject to change, with additional features such as contextual tagging, comment moderation, type ahead suggestions, image editing, and onboarding flows still heavily in development. Before we move on, let's take a moment to have a message from today's video sponsor, Omnisend. Now, if you're looking for a solid email marketing platform for your e-commerce store, look no further than Omnisend. Getting started is an absolute breeze. They offer some of the most affordable pricing on the market, and you can start with their free plan and experience premium features without spending a penny. It's the best quality to cost ratio you'll find anywhere. Now, if you're worried about switching from your existing provider to Omnisend, they remove the usual migration stress by handling your flows, lists, and forms for you, making the switch straightforward and hassle-free. If you need help, rest assured, with Omnisend's award-winning customer support, you're always a priority. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year, and you'll get a response in less than 3 minutes, making you feel valued and important. Now, don't just take my word for it. Omnisend is a top-rated platform. With unbeatable pricing, powerful features, and exceptional support, the reviews speak for themselves. If you're ready to elevate your email marketing game, Omnisend is here to help. You could try Omnisend today and discover why they're the best choice for your e-commerce business, with unbeatable pricing, powerful features, and exceptional support. Link in the description down below. So first of all, let's kick things off with taking a look at how you can use the title generation option. So I've got my title inside here, and it's a little bit on the long-winded side. So you can see we've got the regenerate option. If we click it, we now get 3 different title suggestions. As you can see, some of these are slightly shorter, and you can just choose whichever one you think is right for you. In this example, I like the second option, so let's select it. We update our title, but you can carry on doing this if you want to. You can come back in and regenerate the second time. You can see this gives you 3 variations based upon this title, so you could use this to kind of flesh things out. It would be nice to have a little bit more control inside here, so you could stay inside the one area to be able to get various different suggestions, maybe tweak it with manual input and so on. But it's a starting point. It's kind of useful. So that's pretty cool. So we'll click out of that. So there's the first part done. We now have our updated title. Now you'll notice that I don't have a featured image set inside here. So I could set a featured image in the normal way by clicking and coming into our media library and uploading from here should I want to, but that's not really very AI focused. So let's use the new generate featured image button. You click on this. This is now going to take a look at the content of our article and generate what it considers to be a starting point image. And after a few moments, it's not the quickest, I will say, you have a AI generated image. So you can see we can click on this and take a look. It's already added into our library. You see the alt text has been added in and everything else is here, including the description, which tells us it's OpenAI generated image and a very long prompt that's going on with it. And you can, if you want to, regenerate the alt text inside here. We'll come on to the alt text in a moment because that is one of the areas that I think is truly quite a useful feature that's part of these AI experiments. But for now, let's say we're happy with that featured image. We'll set that. There's our featured image done. Again, having more control over these options would be kind of useful, so we can tell it what kind of image we want to have, as opposed to it reading through the text and coming back with what it thinks is a good image starting point. Let's move on to the excerpts. Now, if you are like me, you don't mind writing the content of the article itself, but when it comes to an excerpt where you kind of summarize what it's about or a little bit of sales pitch, it's not always something you're that good at doing. So having an AI option here is quite useful. You'll see we've got the option to generate an excerpt. So we'll click on this. That again is going to read through the content, take a look at what's in there and come back with its own summary, which we'll use for the excerpt. And we can edit this excerpt if you want, and we'll see there's our excerpt. And you can see inside here, effective web design begins with structured communication, blah, 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 blah. So it's created an excerpt that we can use without us having to do it manually. Again, all good starting points if you want to refine this. Absolutely refine it, tweak it to whatever you want, or delete it and start again. You can absolutely do that as well. So you can say you can regenerate the excerpt. And there we go. We now have a different excerpt, again, based upon the content of the article that we've written. So again, quite a nice, useful little feature. And I think that's where this is going. I wasn't the biggest fan of having AI inserted into WordPress, but I can see the benefits of a lot of the features here, especially the excerpts and the ability to have the alt text and everything set up for you. With regards to the featured image, not really the biggest fan of that. I'd rather have control of that myself, but it's there in a pinch should you need it. Then if we want to add an image into the actual flow, we can come in and we can just go in and search for an image like we normally do. And we'll add an image. And you'll see now we've got upload, generate image, media library, and insert from URL. So we've had the other 3 there for the longest time, but generate image is obviously new. So we'll click on generate image. Now we can describe what we want. So this is what I would like to see when it comes to the featured image. So we'll pop in the kind of prompt we want to use, hit generate. Then after a few moments, quite a few moments actually, it does take quite a while to do this, but that's what you kind of get with most AI image generation. You'll see it's now generated an image based upon exactly what I asked it to do. And in all honesty, it's not a bad image. You can see we can use this, generate another image, or we can edit the prompt from here. So let's say we'll use the image. That will automatically generate the alt text for that image, which again saves us another step. So this is actually quite a useful kind of set of options. And you see there's our image inserted in. And if we click on this, you can see we have the alt text over on the right-hand side. We can regenerate this and we have all our normal controls here as well. So if we wanted to make this square, for example, we can absolutely do that. So now what we can do is we can generate review notes. So this is going to look through and it's going to give us suggestions on how we can improve the actual content. So let's generate review notes. This is going to go through, in this example, 22 different blocks, and it's going to give us the feedback based upon the content we have. Okay, so it's gone through now and it's created those review notes, but you'll notice that it doesn't really immediately jump out at you what you've got to do here. Yes, it's popped up here and says 11 suggestions added, view these notes here. So we can click on this and we can view them. And you see there's our notes. So as we scroll through our article, our content, you can see it comes back with various different suggestions. So for example, we've got SEO. The heading, the power of asking the right questions, is vague and does not clearly describe the section topic related to the client questionnaire in web design projects. What would be quite cool to you now, though, is if it came up with the ability to give us suggestions. So we could click and say, suggest better options, and it would come back and give us those suggestions. But it doesn't. But hopefully that's something that will be added later on down the line. If you've ever, again, I say use Grammarly, that will give you the option to be able to suggest better kind of versions. And you can see we can leave feedback here, and we'll hit reply. Okay, so now that gives us the ability to sort of pop that information inside. Then you can see we've now got the conversation going here for our notes. So we can click and that'll show us the note. So that's quite cool, quite useful. Finally, let's take a look at the Generate AI summary. This is going to take a look and summarize the overall content on the page. This is generally relatively quick. So this will create a summary block that is a summary of the content of the post generated by AI. So we'll click on that, let it go ahead and read the content. And you see that was very, very quick. That was in real time. So that now pops this in right at the beginning. And again, if we want to, we can regenerate it from the sort of pop-up, or we can regenerate it from the button over the right-hand side. So now we've seen some of this in action, let's take a look at how we would actually set this up for ourselves. At the moment, we've got 3 different AI connectors that we can use with WordPress 7. That allows us to connect us to Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI. So you simply drop in the API key for whichever of these you want to use. And then once you've done that, you have that connected and it's then available to any tool inside WordPress 7 and above that can connect up to AI. What this is effectively doing is giving you a centralized location for your API that you don't have to put into every single plugin, builder, theme, whatever's using it when you install them. This is a smart way of working. It gives us that centralized location. So if we want to change something, we can change it in one place and all of those plugins that use it will then be updated accordingly. Smart way of working. I do like that. Then once you've got that set up, you can jump into the AI experiments, which is currently a plugin you've got to install. And inside here, you can choose what experiments you actually want to include. Now, I've already gone through some of the basics here. There are additional features. I would recommend taking a look at the changelog. But you can see we've got excerpt generation, alt text, image generation, review notes, content summarization, and title generation. We've seen all of those. We've also got the Abilities Explorer, so AI-powered features for the WordPress admin area, including exploration and testing tools. So if we come into Tools and we choose the Abilities Explorer, providing you've got this enabled, this will show you the Abilities Explorer information. So alt text generation, it tells you the slug for that. It's a plugin. You can view it. You can test it. So you can get more information about the different features you've got inside here for these AI tools. So let me summarize and give you my feedback. First of all, the connectors option. I do think that's a smart way of working because it means that we don't have to handle API keys in every single plugin or tool inside WordPress that uses one. One centralized location, we can easily change that and everything will have that change reflected. That is a smart way of working. Moving on to some of the things we've seen inside the AI experiments, things like your title generation, your alt text generation, and so on. Again, I could see myself using various different tools here. Not so much the image generation. I'm not the biggest fan of AI images being used everywhere. In a pinch, they can be useful, but they're not always something I would want to use. But having it integrated in here is a nice kind of feature if you want to use it. And you can disable it if you don't want to use it. So you have control over that. I think the things like the alt generation and so on, title generation, even if it just sparks your interest, even if it just gives you ideas, I think that's a good starting point. The alt text, yes, that's something I absolutely hate doing. I generally tend to use SEO Press to handle it, so I don't have to worry about that side of things. But having it natively supported inside WordPress 7 and above is a smart way of working. So I don't think what we're seeing inside these AI experiments is kind of groundbreaking at this point in time. And I'm sure there will be more controversial additions into WordPress in the future. But I think it's quite considered in how this first iteration is going. And I could see a lot of use in various different tools here. But let me turn the tables over to you. What are your thoughts on these AI experiments? Could you see yourself using any of these? Or do you just think, I'd rather just use something like Claude or ChatGPT, or maybe even just move away from WordPress completely into AI vibe coding? Let me know in the comments section down below because I would love to know your thoughts on this. As always, all applicable links are in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.